Views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olsen.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of After Hours AM. It is the last edition of 2016. We have a great guest on tap for you tonight. Chris Formant is on tonight, and he wrote Bright Midnight. He'll be on the top of the second hour, and Eric will fill you in all about this awesome, awesome book here in a minute. But, man, I got to take care of some business right away. How the heck are the babies doing over there in Finland, man?
Hey, the babies are sweet. They still smell. They still have that newborn smell. You know how you just want to eat it all up? It's
Yeah.
like warm
I
cookies and milk.
Yeah, I have a 10-month terror over here. He's a terrorist now. He's no longer a baby. He's into everything and screaming, yelling, biting. The baby phase for me is done, unfortunately, because when he was just little and, real little, that's all he wanted to do is cuddle and bond. Nope, now he's gone. But yes, so I envy you in some ways.
Well, it was very, very, very exciting. You know, here I am for the first time, a grandfather. And here's these little tiny people, twins, one boy, one girl. And they're a few months old. And here they are. And I go all the way over to Finland, which basically is a 24-hour journey by the time you're there. And, there they are waiting for me, just the two of them, just the twins waiting for me at the airport.
Just the twins. They showed up on their own.
They somehow managed to get there in their side-by-side twin stroller.
Hailed a cab, went down there, waited for Grandpa.
Actually, my son and daughter-in-law live 2 exits away on the train from the airport. Literally, I'm not exaggerating. When I left there in a hurry to get out because it was very early yesterday morning. From the time I left their door till the time I was in the airport, 15 minutes.
Wow. That ain't bad at all.
No car. That's walking to the train, getting on the train, 2 stops, out of the train, you're in the airport.
Those countries have done something that we have not been able to do very well, and that's mass transit.
Yeah, they do it very well.
We don't have that here like other countries, I've been in Europe, and the train is huge. You can go from country to country to country on a train. Here it's just so spotty, our mass transit.
Well, and it runs so often. I mean, it's literally it's every 10 minutes it shows up.
Wow.
So, I mean, you got there's no way to miss it, and really there's no way to be late. Yeah, it's a whole different culture. They actually, unlike a lot of European countries, they're very much into cars. So it's not like they don't like cars.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes you take the car And sometimes you take the train because it's what makes the most sense. I love a lot of things. I love the sauna. They have one right in their little apartment. They have their own.
Really? See, now you said sauna right.
Sauna.
That's right. It's sauna.
I've been in Finland for 9 days.
And I will argue with anyone that calls it sauna. And if you go to a very heavily Finnish area, United States, like where I am, if you call it sauna here, you may get a black eye. That's how serious they are.
Well, you would deserve one.
You would. You would. Hey, can I go to sauna? Boom. You get punched.
Here's what it is. They pronounce all the vowels. There's no diphthongs. There's no, AU together. You pronounce every vowel separately and independently.
Yep.
And they have a lot of words where there's two vowels of the same, so two U's or two O's or whatever in a row, and you still pronounce them both.
Yep. You're very phonetic speakers as well.
It's an amazing place. It really is.
Yeah.
This time of year, it is dark, dark, dark.
Yeah.
It's only light 5 hours a day.
Oh,
and
my Lord.
That 5 hours of light is not very bright.
Wow. Well, since you've been gone, since you left the country, you may be a little bit out of the loop. We had 2016, the year of the Reaper, was not quite done with us.
I don't want to know what's going to happen in the
next 2
days.
Just last week, it was George Michael, Carrie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds.
I know. Can you believe that poor
That's
Debbie?
it.
She couldn't handle it.
No, she died of a broken heart. That's what they're saying.
Well, she had a stroke.
That poor lady.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question it was brought on by her.
And then I think it was
grief.
the week before Zsa Zsa Gabor, you had who else? John Glenn, Ellen Thicke.
I mean, it's just endless.
It really is. I had the complete list in front of me. But here's a short list. This is the short list, mind you. We have Pat Harrington, David Bowie, Alan Rickman, Dan Haggerty. You remember Grizzly Adams, right?
Of course.
Glenn Fry, the Eagles. Abe Vigoda. Am I saying that? Okay, there we go, Vigoda. George Gaines, Tony Burton. I think he was a news person. George.
Hi, George.
Gee, hi, George. How you doing? George Kennedy, Nancy Reagan, Robert Horton, Joe Santos, Joe Garagiola. What is that? I always stumble on this.
Joe Garagiola?
There it is. I always stumble on that one. Ken Howard, Peter Brown, Gary Shandling, James Noble, Patty Duke, Doris Roberts, Prince, of course, William Shelbert, Morley Safer, Alan Young, Muhammad Ali, Anton Ulich, Noel Neal, Gary Marshall, Stephen Hill, Gene Wilder, Hugh O'Brien, Arnold Palmer, Robert Vaughn, Florence Henderson, Fidel Castro, Ron Glass, Van Williams, John Glenn, Alan Thicke, Bernard Fox, Zsa Zsa Gabor, George Michael, Carrie Fisher, and Debbie Reynolds. Now, that's a short list.
It's astonishing. Kind of unbelievable.
It really is.
And I was gone a week, basically 9 days, and in that time, we had three of the biggest. You had Carrie Fisher.
Could you imagine?
George, followed immediately by George Michael.
Yes.
Followed immediately by Debbie.
Could you imagine if 2016 was a serial killer? It would have the biggest body count ever.
Oh, my God. I mean, it really is. And it's not just the volume. I mean, there's always a lot. Every year you see when they're running the list on the Oscars and the Grammys, and I mean, it's like, wow, I forgot. Yeah, wow, another big year. But it's the name, it's the size, the magnitude of the people this year. In all walks of life, who is bigger? Who is more an American icon hero than John Glenn?
Exactly.
Who is bigger in the history of sport? I mean, any kind of sport than Muhammad Ali?
Yes. Well, just
music history than Bowie and Prince.
Exactly. Just to put it in perspective for you, the month of January 2016, we lost 19 people.
Dang.
That's just January.
It really is madness.
Every month has had a large body count.
And of course, we always remember what has happened most recently. So I couldn't. I'm like, okay, we got a week to go before the end of the year, so is that going to be it? Are we going to be okay? No. I mean, can you imagine being on that plane with Carrie Fisher? They've flown all the way from London, and she has a heart attack 15 minutes before they land.
Right? 15 minutes before they land, there she is dying.
And the fact that she was on a plane, even for that short a time, is probably what killed her.
Well, several would say that she had a history of drug abuse,
cocaine. Of course she did.
I mean, all those things.
She did. No doubt
take
about
a toll on your body.
I mean, it's not really a shock.
No.
But it's still very sad.
Well, it is very sad. I mean, was I completely shocked that she had a heart attack given her abuse of her body history? Not really.
Not by the time you're 60.
No. I mean, those things do have a habit of catching up with you. But her mother, Debbie Reynolds, was, by all accounts, in great health.
Yeah. No, I think it really was. I'm sure it was literally a broken heart.
Yeah.
She had a stroke. They never really know what causes at any given time a stroke. Usually the only time if they can trace a blood clot from somewhere that ends up in the brain. But as far as what generated, what was the actual impetus for it, they don't know, and we don't know what kind of stroke she had. If she had the bleeding kind, which my mother had a year and a half ago, they have no idea what caused it. Well, certainly extreme stress, sadness, the shock could have absolutely caused it.
Well, that's exactly it. I think that they were speculating anyway on the big news corporations that it was the stress of losing her daughter. Evidently, they were as thick as they come. I mean, they were tight. Those two, they were very close. In fact, they lived right next door to each other. I for one, speaking as a parent, and I know you can echo this because you're a parent as well. I don't know that I wouldn't act any different because I couldn't imagine burying one of my children at any age.
Oh, I know. It's really, and just as it so happens, just coincidentally, I mean, my mother is the exact same age as Debbie Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not quite as old as Carrie, but certainly ballpark.
Sure.
And so, I absolutely can relate to that. And I assure you, my mother wouldn't respond very well at her age and in her condition. No. If something happened to one of her children, it's really, really, really sad.
It is horrible. And then we got weird things going on in politics, of course, which that has just been a dog and pony show, man. You got Obama and Trump fighting back and forth, little tidbits here and there, bickering. One will lash out the other and then they'll take it back. And then we have Russia in the mix, where they're actually giving sanctions to Russia now because they are so convinced that they hacked us during the elections. And let's just be completely honest, America influences a lot of world elections. There's evidence of that throughout the years. So it's not a new phenomena. They just got caught doing it.
Well, okay, but have we done things? Yes, I guess throughout history, sure, we have. We have influenced rather strongly, but that's certainly nothing to be proud of.
No,
it's very, very disturbing the thought that the government of another nation, a supposed ally, although I don't think anyone really is.
Have they ever really been an ally with anybody?
For about 10 minutes.
Yeah. Russia just has never, in my opinion anyway, I mean, I could be completely wrong here, has never played well with others, unless you're like a Cuba or a China or whatever, but has never, by and large, played well with others.
They don't think they have to follow the rules.
No.
Look at the Olympics.
Exactly. Oh, man, God.
They're admitting it now.
Yes, they doped for years. And then, of course, we have the rhetoric about Israel out there that is kind of oddly strange because I thought they were one of our closest allies. And then, of course...
they're not happy because Obama was allowed the condemning of the building of the...
Yep, exactly. But politics is equally as weird 2016 as the deaths of all these people. I don't understand. Mass hysteria, man. Dogs and cats living together, kind of strange things going on around this joint.
A very, very, very peculiar year on kind of kind of every front. There's no doubt about it. It's bizarre beyond belief. It's almost a relief when we can get to looking at the fun stuff, the paranormal stuff, you know, which ultimately, if you think about it, if it's paranormal, ultimately it somehow relates to death. It shouldn't be that much fun, but it's a break from all this, terrible real world stuff. Yeah,
heaven is full of some great people right now. I mean, that always were, but now they got a whole new music.
They've had quite a coup this year, haven't they?
Oh, yeah. It's a musical act. Bowie, Prince.
Remember when that song came out? I'm trying to think when it was. Was it the 70s or was it the 80s?
Me, I had a cough there.
The Rock and Roll Heaven,
Oh, yeah.
They got a hell of a band. And they were listing them all off. Oh, my God. I mean, you can't even name them all anymore.
No. It's crazy. It's, of course, something we could touch on with Chris when he comes on is the 27 Club.
I'll tell you.
I
read it all the way on my trip. That's what I did all the way back, on my 20 hours worth of flying in the air. Well, not quite that long, but man.
And your arms are tired, right?
It's the stops at the airports that kills you. By the way, before I forget anything else, I must mention, this is a side note, I will get back to the book. It is a great book. It is called Bright Midnight. It's a great murder mystery. It is a fast read, and they're comparing it to the Da Vinci Code. They're calling it the Rock and Roll Da Vinci Code. It is much better written than the Da Vinci Code.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been reading it, and I haven't finished it yet because I didn't get it till today because of all the mail being slow and, and everything else. But, at least I have it in my hands. I was reading it. Very well written. Very compelling stuff.
It really is. And it's so fun because, of course, we're both huge music fans, and I'm to a certain extent, I guess, a rock historian myself, having written the Encyclopedia of Record Producers and on and whatever. So it is chock full of all this rock information and all this insider stuff and all the names. It's a cold. It really is. Cold case, murder mystery, conspiracy theory type thing about the Club of 27. That's what it's about, and it is really, really good.
Yeah,
you never know when you're getting into something. I don't know. This could be really great.
It could go either way.
It could be kind of hokey and cheesy, but it is not at all. It is really, really well done. So anyway, I got to mention on the way back. For obscure reasons that I don't exactly understand, I got upgraded from coach, from economy, to business class, business class for the big flight, for the one from Copenhagen all the way to Boston. It's about 8 hours. And, oh, my God, it was like being in a spa for 8 hours.
Really?
It was
you're lucky.
It was pampered. They came along and, manicure, pedicure.
No way.
Did your hair.
You had a mani-pedi while you're there?
No, I made that part up. But they couldn't have been nicer. You got the reclining chairs. You got all the room in the world. Two gourmet meals in the 8 hours. They keep throwing more food and snacks at you in between. They keep trying to give you drinks. I wasn't drinking alcohol because I was reading the book and I had to get back here and I had stuff to do. And plus, man, if I drink on a plane, I get the most massive headache.
Really?
So I can't drink on a plane. Don't do that. Yeah. So anyway, but I still, I'm going with their alcohol-free cocktails. It's just all this amazing stuff. It was so fantastic. And they're talking to you, and they coo and pamper and
wow.
If that's all these hot Scandinavian women who are the flight attendants.
Don't even go there. Yeah.
Oh, it was just
more blonde hair they can shake a stick at. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I don't have to tell you. Flying these days in coach, which is 95% or 90% of the people who fly are flying what they now call economy, what used to be called coach.
Yeah,
it is hell.
It really is
a terrible experience.
Small seats.
And no leg room, and the food. You got to pay for food half the time. You got to pay for drinks half the time.
Mm-hmm.
None of that was the case.
No, I wonder what first class
is. Business class. I'm telling you, it's the way to go.
I wonder what first class is like then. Business class is that great? What are first classes like?
There was no first class. They blended them together.
Oh, they
Business
did?
Class is
Oh.
now first, at least on that.
Look at you.
So, yes, in other words, it was like being in first class. It was
Awesome.
Fantasmo. Loved it. And they're listening. I told them all about the show. They're listening tonight. My SAS friends, check it out.
Hey, you know what? Hopefully I can fly in front of the skies of those people. This sounds like a great time.
It was unbelievable. I was really dreading it because I was so tired already. And every time I have a long flight, you get so sore and bound up, and your feet swell, and your back hurts, and your neck hurts. It's a miserable experience. I came off that flight, like I said, it'd be like 8 hours in a spa.
Yes, he got off. You're like fresh as a rose.
I'm dancing down the runway.
You say hi. You show up, and your family's like, "Wow, you look great for someone that's been in the air, 20 hours." Oh, I feel great.
They were amazed. Unfortunately, I still had another flight from Boston to Cleveland, which is only 2 hours, but it was enough to remind me what flying is normally like.
Yes, long and dreadulous. It's horrible.
The 2 hours is not bad at all. It goes pretty quick. But, that was a Spartan flight. There were no frills on that flight, I assure you.
No, there. I would imagine there would have been. Very little.
Nothing at all. A cup of water. Here's your water. Shut up and be happy. But
no lemon in it.
There was a great surprise because I wasn't expecting it. It just happened. Like I said, things just kind of fell into place. It's nothing I requested. Didn't even pay for it. They just upgraded me because they had a little bit of room, and I won the lottery. So that's all. Maybe it was a fantastic experience.
Maybe they're already fans of the show. They're like,
I asked them.
That's
and
that guy.
The flight attendant, the woman who I was talking to kind of the whole time. Oh my God, I love the paranormal.
I love the paranormal.
Cute little accent.
Oh yeah.
Swedish accent.
Was she cute?
Super cute.
Oh, good. See, now that makes it even more fun.
She was a doll, and she could not have been more pleasant. You know why she was the main attendant in that section? It's not. They don't put the scrubs.
No,
in the business class.
No, you get the ones in coach that look like they just came from the homeless shelter.
I don't want to get into that, but it was so funny just to do a comparison between the attendants we had in business class on Copenhagen to Boston to comparing the attendant we had, one single attendant, one from Boston to Cleveland. There was about 30 years age difference. And
Sure. That's all good, man. That's all good.
There was a lot.
Well, I'm glad you had a great experience. I'm glad the flight was good. More importantly, I'm happy you got to see your family, got to see your son, and got to see the new additions. That really makes Christmas because you were there during Christmas. And I'm sure you missed, of course, Dawn and the kids, but my gosh, what an experience.
I did. That part was not easy. It was just me over there, and it was over Christmas, so that made it hard. And boy, there was some guilt trips flying.
Oh, yeah. Pack your bags, Eric. You're going on a guilt trip.
There was no lack of that. Well, and then of course we'd Skype every couple days, and they laid it on thick.
Oh, of course. Oh, we miss you, and we didn't get to go to.
If you were here, you could have done this, and we would have done this with you, and we would have been so nice to you, and then this would have happened. You could have seen what happened when we did this.
Exactly.
This. But you're not here, so that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Take that. Because they want to come sauna with you.
Yes. Boy, I like that. I like the sauna.
Now, did you ever find out? Now, before you left, we discussed something called a helicopter.
Yes.
Did you discover what the helicopter was?
Oh, I knew what it was.
Okay.
Was I exposed to it? No.
No, okay. And when you say exposed, you really mean exposed.
Oh, I do mean exposed.
Yeah. Because I remember being a young lad up here, and primarily, as I've said a few different times, primarily of Finnish origin. I mean, most people up here are Finlanders. That's what they call them up here. They're Finlanders. And, there was some helicoptering going on when I was a kid, and it was really weird.
The problem is it ties in with drinking.
Yes.
See, that's the thing. The Finns are rather reticent and they're kind of inward-looking people. They're kind of quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, once they start drinking, they are transformed.
That's right, man. They go from being Mr. Quiet to Mr. Life of the party.
And so the helicopter experience is a combination, combine the sauna with drinking.
Yeah.
And it's an experience that it's absolutely required that you not wear clothes, because that is not considered acceptable part of the experience. So if you're in like a public setting, there aren't that many of those, I guess, anymore. You know, literally public saunas. But everything is by gender, and and if it's for some reason not by gender, it's totally non-sexual. It's just, it's your body experience. This is something we do, and we're up here in the cold, and this is a tradition, and it makes a big difference as far as health. And
up here, here in the States, they go nuts over that. I mean, in a bad way.
I know. It's like we do with everything. We can't, breastfeeding. Oh,
yes.
Oh my God! Oh no, she pulled her boob out. Well, she's breastfeeding, you idiot.
I knew a good friend of mine that I was in college at the time, and he was from, I want to say he was from Amsterdam. I can't remember where he's from. But we were discussing the cultures, and he was so shocked of the level of violence that we had on our televisions here in the States.
Sure.
He says, you know what, I've never seen so many guns in my life, never seen so many people murdered in my life, I've never seen these horrible things that where I'm from would get you a rated R in the films. And I said, okay,
it really is. It's a different culture. Europe, sure, they got nude beaches, they got, topless bathing suits, and it's non-sexual.
And,
the body is the body. Look, everyone has a body.
Well, that is true, and exactly.
Babies breastfeed. Get over it.
But his point is over in his neck of the woods, nudity on television is not necessarily frowned on. It's the violence that they frown on.
Exactly. You're right. I agree.
So,
you're absolutely right.
It's just a different culture, different way of thinking, where we're so violent heavy here versus they're more like make love not war kind of mentality, where we're like, well, let's do the war, but you better not say bad words or show your boobies.
Exactly. You're right. It's something you can get used to, and there certainly are aspects of. And we're not talking European as in, it's not like it's one monoculture.
No.
Many differences within it. But we are talking Northern European, the Nordic countries. There's certainly plenty of similarities between them. You have Scandinavia, and then Finland's kind of separate, but certainly connected. And they have a large Swedish subpopulation.
Full of those dumb Finlanders. I want to know why I could say that because I'm part Finn.
Well, sure. And I am not. I am Norwegian American, but I am my daughter-in-law, full-blood Finn. So, and my grandchildren.
Is she blonde?
Half Finn. No, she has very dark hair.
See, up here now, with a lot of Finnish people, they all seem to be blonde. A lot of blonde influence up here.
There's two looks I've noticed, two kind of stereotypical looks in Finland. Either you're very, very, very light, kind of white blonde, like platinum blonde, basically.
Yeah.
Or there is also very common a much darker look, a little bit darker skin, almost a little bit Asian looking.
Sure. Yeah.
And dark hair. And so those are kind of the two main looks. Very, very dark. Hers is kind of black.
Yeah.
So that is the way it is. Both the babies, though, appear to be pretty light-haired.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're going to be blonde, but they're certainly lighter-haired. And they're both blue-eyed.
Well, I am, again, we only have a minute left. I'm so happy that the trip went well. You came back in one piece. You left in one piece. You had a great time with the family. And you know what? It was a great Christmas all the way around. Of course, I missed you. The listeners missed you, but thank God we're back on the air.
And, I'm happy to be here, and I missed you guys, and I missed the show. It was great. It was a great week. It was very busy because they, it's twins. They're little tiny babies, and they need help.
That's right.
My poor son and daughter-in-law. It is not.
I couldn't imagine
easy.
Twins.
Oh boy,
one is hard enough.
I couldn't imagine it for more than a week. Of course, I'd love to be able to be around them. But I mean, I was around them. I was there around them 24 hours a day,
Well,
and they only they only sleep 3-4 hours max
yeah.
at a time.
Yes.
And when
yes,
you have
yes.
two of them, if one's up, then the other here.
That's how they roll, man. That is how they roll. We got to run a break, and when we come back, your America's Most Haunted Headlines next. Anavar Media LCC is a dedicated team of professionals committed to helping business development scale and protect their websites, mobile applications, enterprise software solutions in the Northeast Ohio area. Locally owned since 2012, our client-centered values truly sets Anavar apart. Contact us today to learn how you can get 25% off your first project. Call them at 234-380-4852. Again, that's 234-380-4852, or visit them at www.anavar.com. Again, that's www.anavar.com.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Start it off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes two. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese!
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed,
680 to 90, 10-4.
could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzzed driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzzed driving, because buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's your ideas, work, and creativity that make it your yard. At ACE, we're here to help with hoses and sprinklers to nurture growth, gardening tools for the shape of good things to come, even the right fertilizer and bug killers to make the grass a little greener. You'll find it all now at ACE, your place, with everything you need for your yard, plus helpful advice, almost like we're right there. ACE,
the helpful place.
Do you have a question for our guest tonight? Don't feel like calling the show? Not a problem. Email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Again, that's afterhoursam@gmail.com.
And now, the final crowning touch to this cake. Take a bite.
Chocolate.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olsen
is the world traveler and sexiest man alive, Eric Olsen.
Well, I'm one of. I'll tell you what. When I got back, and of course you have to go through customs, right? And I had been traveling all that time, and even the night before I left, I hadn't gotten much sleep. So I mean, I was really kind of at my worst.
Sure.
And so you got to take a picture when you come in for customs. I said, "Oh my God, who is that person?" I looked like hell. Oh, my skin was all dry.
Oh, it's
my
all
eyes
good.
are all baggy and saggy. Oh my God, did I show my age?
It's all good, man. It's all good.
That cannot be the person who I think it is.
Well, you know,
me.
You know, it's all good. It really is. Okay, now we got some headlines to get to. Now, you're not going to do the normal headlines. We're going to do the top headlines of each month, were you saying?
Yeah.
All right, let's
and,
do a little year-end wrap-up.
Interesting to see what they are, because obviously, as you all know, on @AMHaunted on Twitter, we cover broadly, very broadly speaking, the paranormal world, anything to do with Halloween, horror, weirdness, strangeness, cool science, astronomy, just anything unusual and strange, and anything that you would go, that is amaze-mo. So, but guess what the top tweet, which I must say makes me feel kind of good, because it means I am an actual human being to people out there.
What is the top?
The top tweet of December was when I was saying, "Oh, sorry guys, I was away for a few days because my dad had a heart attack." And I got 14,000 impressions.
Wow.
And, hey, guys, sorry for the unintended absence. Dad had a cardiac episode. This was about 3 weeks ago. And is hospitalized, working from there now, doing okay, thanks. And I got 14,000 impressions.
Wow.
So, it's nice, because sometimes I feel like, am I a person on here, or am I just that brand? Am I just America's Most Haunted?
Well, Twitter has become such a juggernaut too, because Twitter has really really inserted itself a lot in the political realm too. Because my gosh, everybody from Trump to Obama to you name it, even Putin, they all tweet,
and they're all tweet wars.
Exactly,
I love that.
They're tweet warring with each other.
Yeah, I would say the number one fan of Donald Trump as candidate and
is Donald Trump.
Besides him.
Oh, okay.
Is Twitter. The owners of Twitter. Oh, my God. How much more high profile.
Look at that free advertising they're getting, as if they needed it.
Unbelievable. All right, so let's move back in time. Let's see what happened in November. So that's December. Top tweet was about my dad's heart attack, which isn't funny, but he seems to be doing all right.
Well, that's good. He did make a good recovery.
He does seem to have recovered well. All right, top for November. Ooh, this was a big one. This one, 29,000 impressions.
Wow.
All right, and then the supermoon came closer and closer until it docked, and we climbed aboard. And it's an enormous picture, just enormous picture of the supermoon.
I remember the supermoon.
Real close. And
that was something else. That supermoon stuff. That was really cool.
You know how many likes we got on that one?
How many likes we get on that one?
454.
Woo.
And on Twitter, that is a lot.
That is a lot for Twitter. It's hard to get a like over there. It's not like Facebook.
It's very different.
I could say I got a egg fried in the frying pan. I'll get 80 likes on Facebook.
I know.
So really, Twitter is a different animal altogether.
It is people are much less interactive. They read it, they see it. I know they do, because I see.
And they scroll by it.
But they don't. It's very hard to figure out what it takes to get people to actually like it,
money,
or retweet it.
It takes money, cold hard cash.
Well, it takes
my
fame,
friend.
actually, is what it takes. The ones who get the super large number are the people who are the high level celebrities.
True. I can only imagine if millions of followers. My Lord.
I know. All right, so that was number one in November. We had another really big one. Does not surprise me at all, because we always have such good luck with our buds over at Paranormal Lockdown, and that was the announcement. Paranormal Lockdown returns for Season 2 on December 16th, and, of course, we got a retweet from both Nick and Katrina, and they find human skeletal remains. That one got 18,000 impressions.
Wow,
so
my God.
November was a big month.
Yeah, they're good folks, too. I mean, that was one of my favorite interviews is when we had them on. We had them on a couple times last year. And it was a lot of fun, or this year, because it's not quite done yet. But it was really nice talking to them and getting their insights on everything, haunted and crazy, and really they're as crazy as, well, I guess crazier than we are, because we don't go 72 hours and get locked down in a crazy haunted joint, not by choosing. And really, I enjoyed it. What was your favorite interview? If you had to go back in time and think to yourself what your favorite interview of 2016 was, what would you have to say? I mean, most entertaining. Not your favorite guest, just your most entertaining interview, because they're all good and our guests are all awesome. But which one made you go, oh, damn?
A lot of them, really.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Do you have one that stands out in your mind?
I think when we actually, boy, that's a tough one to choose. I'm trying to think of the back of my head. We've had so many great guests. I want to say the one that we had on with, it wasn't that long ago. What was with? I want to say it's either the Knickerbocker, because see, remember we heard that cat on the interview.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
and there was no cat there, but we
Saw
both.
the cat. Yeah, the picture. Yeah, that one's.
But no, we
staggering
heard a
and
dog
stunning.
bark. Rather, remember we both heard a dog bark, clear as day during the interview.
And no one was, and there wasn't.
And
one
we
there.
asked her, "Well, you must have dogs," and she said, "No."
That was pretty astonishing. I agree.
That was a moment that made me go, "Whoa, that is a little on the crazy side." And then, of course, I think most of her interviews with Clarissa were definitely a highlight 2016
always
because
enjoyed talking with
she
Clarissa.
brings
I've
it,
learned
man.
so much from her. Obviously about her field, but it's beyond that, because think of the level of empathy she has to have to stay as normal as she is, working with these literal. We're not exaggerating. Psychotics, serial killers, serial rapists, child molesters, the scum of the scum, the worst people in the world. And she is a absolutely balanced, normal.
She is, well, as normal as you can
person.
be to be in that field. I mean, sometimes I laugh at her because she has such empathy for the serial killer. Where I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? No. I would not agree with you at all, Clarissa. But then again, I respect her immensely. And we had so many great interviews during the year. And, of course, so many great moments. I mean, you had the National Ghost Hunting Day, for instance, that was really cool. And then we also were involved with a lot of things in the paranormal that most folks don't get a chance to talk to these people. Like like Eric from Van Doniken that wrote Chariots of the Gods.
That was amazing.
I mean,
he's a hero.
yeah.
He doesn't know who he is. He's an absolute founder in the field. The whole ancient astronauts field. Basically, he created it, and he's still super sharp, fun to talk to, interesting guy. Had all kind. It really kind of gives you a different perspective. Yeah, here's what we should do. Between the two of us, let's go back. And this coming week, and let's review on our own. Let's just go back over and look at all the interviews, and we will come up with a really well thought and well reviewed list of some of the highlights, favorite moments, and maybe even a best interview or a favorite interview for the year. Let's do that next week.
I think that's a great idea.
I clearly have had no time to prepare. I literally rolled back into town last night. I passed out for 12 hours.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I just came to mind that
I don't want to.
We've had so many great interviews.
Out
we've had the opportunity to talk to so many great people, like the Ash versus Evil Dead crew.
That was absolutely
and so we're lucky, man. Yeah, we're lucky. Think how lucky we are, how blessed we are to not only talk to all these great people, but a lot of them have become friends now since the interviews, and we interact with great listeners. We have a great listener base. We are blessed, and a roundabout way, I want to thank our listeners, because if it weren't for you guys listening, we wouldn't be able to have these great people on there.
Absolutely true, and we appreciate it, and we always love hearing from you. Be sure to check in. And hey, why don't you tell us, what were your favorites? Or what was your favorite interview, or just favorite moment?
Yeah.
What's the email address? Whip it on them.
AfterHoursAM@gmail.com. Go ahead, email that into us, and tell us your favorite moment on After Hours AM. Whether it's funny, sad, scary, go ahead, tell us. Tell us what your favorite interview, your favorite segment was of this year that sticks in your mind. Love to hear from you guys. Again, that's AfterHoursAM@gmail.com. So don't miss out. Tell us before next week, and we'll make sure to include those emails.
All right, well, we're going to run out of time. We won't get through the year. All right, so going back to October now, top tweet. This one had 19,000 impressions. And this was right after the Walking Dead premiere. And the tweet was, teeny tiny bits of hope from the Walking Dead Season 7 premiere, including the endless balls of Abraham. So what it was is it was a list of the very, very obscure, little teeny tiny, that was such a bleak, discouraging, terrible in terms of emotional turmoil and toil and toll that episode. And so it was just trying to pick out the little teeny bits of hope that were buried in their places. And people were very responsive to that because everyone was just feeling so distraught about it. And that one did very well, 19,000. After that, the second top one in October, that was another Nick and Katrina. That one was specifically about the Black Monk House Halloween episode, the one that was the 72 hours. And that was a great interview. We loved talking to them, hearing about what was going to happen on the show, in previewing what was going to happen with the 72 hours, and the fact that it basically it wasn't just a TV episode. It was actually a film. It was really a film put together. It had a beginning and a middle and an end. It wasn't just taking place at the Black Monk House. It brought in some other very relevant events, and it tied them together really well. That's certainly one of the highlights of paranormal TV for the year, was that Halloween episode of Paranormal Lockdown, focusing on the Black Monk House. All right, moving back in time, we go back to September. September was, I think it was the biggest month in terms of total. Looks like it might have been the biggest month of the year. Top Hinsdale House. That was the biggest tweet. That one got 22,000. Again, tied into
exactly.
Nick Rock.
Yeah. Well, Nick, he's a popular guy.
He is, and he always retweets us. We appreciate it very much. So yeah, I think it was kind of based on the Nick retweet. So it was the announcement of our show. It was tonight, 9 to 11, talking Notorious Hinsdale House with Dan Class, Tim Shaw on After Hours AM. And that was the biggest tweet, 22,000 of September. Second biggest, 17,000. Evil clowns terrorizing the South.
I remember that.
Hoaxes in hysteria.
Oh, you remember the evil clown phenomena?
I sure do. It lasted way longer than it should.
It did. It did. But and then it left as soon as it showed up.
It was gone. It was here, and then it was gone.
Well, that is true. Yeah, one week it was hot and heavy, and then after that, gone.
All right, we're moving back in time. Now August looks like the biggest month. We're going backwards. All right, top tweet from August. This one doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you see the picture. But man, 22,000 impressions. So that was a biggie. All right, so the tweet is, the picture is of a full moon, very big, bright full moon, and just coincidentally, there is a cloud, a very dense cloud, right in front of the moon that looks for all the world like a mustache. And the tweet was, this whole mustache thing has gone too far.
Oh, wow. I remember that one.
All the way up to the moon.
Yes. I remember reading that tweet when you had that out there.
That was a biggie.
It was the Mustache Club.
Yeah, it was funny. So the second biggest in August was physicists have found fifth force of nature responsible for all missing left socks.
You're right. So, it's more the left that do go missing. You're right. Now that I think about it.
How bizarre is that?
But there is no left or right. They could go in either foot.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
Why is it
know.
the left ones?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
I have no idea. I don't know. It's one of those things that, yes, exactly. Why do they call it a TV set when you only get one? Well, they call it a pair of pants when you only get one. Those kind of questions. They plague me. I lay awake at night thinking of those exact questions.
At least the pair of it's not grammatical actually, but at least it's logical in that a pair of glasses, pair of pants. All right, so pants, you got 2 legs. Pair of glasses, you have 2 eyes.
Sure,
so,
sure.
So that's why.
Sure. I mean, I get it. Don't get me wrong, but it just makes no sense to me. You know, I'm sorry. I had to interject that. It's been bothering me for years.
I don't blame you. I really don't.
All
right, so let's see. We better keep moving back in time. Let's go to July. Oh, that one's not coming up. Let's see. How do we do this? I'll tell you what. Let's not worry about it. What is your anything step break in your mind? We only have 10 more minutes. 8 more minutes. Anything come out, highlights of the paranormal news this year in your mind?
Ooh, good question. There's been so many good things that I think it was more the entertainment stuff on the Twitter feed that, like the X-Files coming back, things like that.
Yeah,
that really
big.
caught my attention because, you know, I'm a sci-fi guy. As far as paranormal goes, of course, every show that, you know, we've been involved with as far as interviewing with Nick and Katrina, and then of course we had Amy and Adam on, stuff like that. Really, all caught my attention. But I would have to say it's been the entertainment side of things, like the X-Files going back.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about the shows that we watch, tweeting a lot about, of course, The Walking Dead. Always.
Exactly.
And this, as we've mentioned several times, to my mind anyway, this is really the absolute golden age. We're in this period that the cliche, the name now is peak TV, meaning there's just this enormous variety of shows. There's something like 500 scripted shows now from all the different sources, and when you include in the streaming sources like Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and so on and so on and so on and so on, as well as cable and as well as broadcast, and you add it all up. So it's just there's more volume of TV by far.
Well, I think
now,
this year
more than ever.
For me, the show Stranger Things was a surprise hit for me.
Huge hit.
I didn't think it would do that great, but yet here we are. You know, it's huge, and you know, and when I first started watching, that was my sleeper for 2016 because I heard good reviews about it, but I didn't think it was as good as, you know, because oftentimes they'll overblow how good a show is. You know, come watch whatever, it's the greatest show ever. You go watch, you're like, You know, kind of like Roanoke with American Horror Story. It fell flat on its face. You know what I mean? It just petered out, right?
It did peter out.
Yeah, I mean, I think for 2016, as far as entertainment goes, it would definitely be the X-Files. And then, of course, Stranger Things would have been my 2 oh my God moments. This is really damn good TV moments.
And I was looking at the top rated shows, what had the most viewership.
Yeah.
And the X-Files was right up there at the top. It was a huge hit.
Oh, yeah, they're coming back. They're coming back. They got the papers inked and everything. They're coming back.
Yeah, I think it was just a matter of working out schedules and how many episodes, because neither one of them wants to get into a commitment of a ton of episodes.
No, I think they'll probably do another
stage
6
of their lives. You know,
yeah, I'll probably do another 6-episode run. And
I think they may go a little longer this next time.
Yeah.
Because six was very brief.
Well, then I also hear a lot of people saying that The Walking Dead is starting to wear out its welcome a little bit. It's getting a little boring.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's hard to compare it to itself. You know, when people say the viewership is down a little, well, yeah, but it's down compared to being the by far and away top most watched show on television.
Yeah,
who could have ever predicted that? You know, 6-7 years ago.
Well, we love horror.
Thought you were insane.
People love horror. People love these kind of shows. And, of course, the big 3 networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS, they've never aired anything like a Walking Dead. Could you imagine? You know The Walking Dead was pitched to one of the big 3 before AMC picked it up, right? I'm sure they did. I'm sure they pitched it.
Well, it would have
to get on
prime
time.
Quite a different show, though.
Yeah, to be on prime time, on CBS, for instance, right after 60 Minutes. Yeah, it'd definitely have to be a different show. But I wonder if these big networks kick themselves, that they gave up that cash cow, to,
again, it's hard to compare apples to apples when you're talking about a cable channel, which has a lot more leeway as far as content with broadcast. And, of course, broadcast can get away with a lot more than they used to. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the level of violence and the intensity and a little bit language. I mean, there's language sometimes on the show. I mean, it's an R-rated show, let's face it.
Oh, it definitely is. If it were in the theaters, it would be an R-rated movie.
No question about it. So that being the case, I think you just it would have had to have been a different show. And as a different show, I'm not sure it would have connected in the same way that it does, because part of the reason it connects so well is because it is, they're free to carry things pretty far. Look at Ash. You mentioned Ash versus Evil Dead. That's one of my other favorite shows.
Oh, I love that show. That's a great show.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe beyond R-rated. It's so crazy with the violence.
But now they're on Stars, though. Now we're talking about Horse of a Different Color.
The language and everything else. It's nuts.
Yeah, well, now we're talking about Horse of a Different Color, where Stars is strictly a subscription.
Right.
So
they can do literally
they can get away with anything. They could probably pretty much show anything if they decided to. I mean, within reasons, of course. I mean, they obviously can't throw on what old Skinamax used to do. Late at night. Remember those? Skinamax days?
They could, because it's. I think they got too heavily into the sexual side of things that it would be a violation of the spirit of the show. But I guess they could if they wanted to.
If they wanted to. But what I'm saying is, Stars now has really become, in my mind, one of the biggest networks out there. I mean, who knew, going from the last rated of the premiums to being one of the number ones. I mean, and it shows like Ash versus the Evil Dead. They
have some other shows too.
Yeah,
They're doing very well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I also heard a rumor that Breaking Bad may be coming back.
I have heard that too. I wonder how that might work.
Yeah, and that was a great show. I mean,
didn't they kill him off?
They did in the end, and now I'm wondering if they never actually show him die though. They kind of leave that cliffhanger there. Is he dead? Is he not dead? They just show him falling on the ground in the meth lab. But what a show! Who knew crystal meth could captivate you the way that show made it captivate you?
It's pretty amazing. It really is. It just shows you really excellent writing, and a compelling.
I can never watch Malcolm in the Middle anymore without thinking about Walter White. Oh geez, man, that guy played Walter White, and here he is, the nice dad of Malcolm in the Middle. Oh my God, he played such a bastard on that show towards the end.
I know. Isn't that funny?
He just played it to the hilt. I mean, the man is a tremendous actor. I'd love to talk to Bryan Cranston. That'd be a wonderful interview.
Yeah, he seems like he's a real nice guy.
Yeah, just to figure out how you go from being so nice to being such a devious jerk, and still keep your sanity and your own integrity.
It just means he's a really excellent actor, and he's been around a long, long time.
Yeah.
People don't realize that, All right, real quick, let me toss it out. All right, the top July tweet, once again, Paranormal Lockdown. It was announcing, 3 months in advance about the Halloween special, and boy, that was a big one. Let's see, what did we do? 23,000 impressions on that one. Going back into where are we? June, top in June, really quick. That one was that picture that was absolutely went viral. Disembodied hand of fate.
Oh yes,
up in the 100-year-old photo.
Yes,
Belfast mill workers.
Yep.
Oh, that was the biggest one of the year. 37,000 impressions.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that one. That was such a weird picture. Had
really
everybody
odd.
talking. Had everybody talking. Very odd.
Let's see. I'm just seeing if there's anything of really particular good note. Yeah, well, the top one of April was Prince dying. That was very sad.
Ooh, that was a sad one. That one really bothered me when Prince left.
It is unacceptable that Prince has been taken from us, perhaps the greatest overall musical talent of the 20th century. That was 24,000 impressions. That was April. I wonder if, let's go back to January and see if it was Bowie. Probably was.
More than likely. Bowie had that was a big impact, losing Bowie. But we got to run to break, man. We got to run to Fox News. We come back. Of course, we have, the great author Chris Formant is going to be here with us. He wrote Bright Midnight. You're not going to go anywhere. Be right back right after this.
Fox News Radio, I'm Kathleen Maloney. The United States is taking action against Russia for its hacking activities during the presidential elections.
What Russia has been engaged in over the last few months and years is unacceptable. It's outside the norms of diplomatic behavior, and the president is sending a message today to tell them to cut it out.
White House Deputy Press Secretary Eric Schultz says there's proof of Russia's cyber antics.
We just declassified a whole tranche of information which shows a roadmap of how Russia engaged in these malicious cyber activities, so people can see for themselves. It's a bit of a forensics of how Russia goes about this.
So the United States is imposing sanctions against Russian officials and intelligence services. 35 Russian diplomats are being kicked out of their embassy in Washington and their consulate in San Francisco. In addition, 2 Russian-owned compounds in the U.S. are being shut down. A spokesman for Russian President Putin says he regrets the sanctions and is considering some sort of retaliation. A ceasefire is in effect in Syria.
It could be the first ceasefire in the nearly 6-year-long Syrian civil war that stands even the slightest chance of working.
Fox's Greg Palcott. The ceasefire was brokered by Russia and Turkey, which support opposing sides in the civil war. Most major rebel groups say they will abide by it. Terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda are not included in the ceasefire agreement. Skiers in the Northeast are smiling about a major winter storm heading into the New Year's holiday.
Once you get into the elevation across some of the green and white mountains, that's where we're getting really pounded. Some spots probably over 2 feet of snow by the time this is said and done. Winter storm warnings in effect parts of Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, western Massachusetts.
Fox's meteorologist Rick Reichmuth. Stocks close slightly lower, the Dow dropping almost 14 points, S&P losing a fraction, NASDAQ down 6. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
Wildfires burn millions of acres each year. And each year, wildland firefighters like Fire Chief James Hall battle to contain them. But they can't do it alone.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. It can ignite and destroy your home, your community, or more. That single ember can be just as dangerous as the wildfire itself. But you can do something firefighters can't. You can act now to prepare your home and your community for wildfire. You can reduce the risk. Do your part. Go to fireadapted.org.
Get fire adapted. Learn what you can do now to reduce wildfire damage later at fireadapted.org. A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council. Learn more at fireadapted.org.
A federal judge has ordered another competency exam for Charleston church shooter Dylan Roof. He's facing the death penalty for killing 9 parishioners last year. The sentencing phase of his trial set to begin Tuesday with Roof representing himself. An outspoken actor is stirring it up on Twitter.
Charlie Sheen took to Twitter to ask God if 2016 can take just one more victim. The actor wrote, "Trump next, please," 6 times in a tweet with a middle finger emoji. Twitter users, who are most likely over hearing about people dying, were quick to rip the actor, and most were wishing the same fate on him while mentioning his HIV status. One Twitterer wrote, Dear God, at Charlie Sheen, next please. Sam Giamo wrote, once again, Charlie Sheen reinforces the knowledge that he is a despicable human being. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
President-elect Trump back on Twitter, but not reacting to what Charlie Sheen tweeted.
Mr. Trump tweeted, my administration will follow two simple rules. Buy American and hire American. The tweet follows Mr. Trump's comments yesterday praising Sprint's decision to relocate jobs.
They're going to be bringing 5,000 jobs back to the United States. They're taking them from other countries. They're bringing them back to the United States.
He also announced that a new emerging company called OneWeb will create an additional 3,000 jobs. The transition team says the president-elect is working on his inaugural speech and will remain in Palm Beach until New Year's Day. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
Millions of American workers have something to celebrate this new year. The minimum wage is going up in 19 states. Massachusetts, Washington State, and New York City will have the highest at $11 an hour. California's goes up to $10.50 an hour for businesses with 26 or more employees, $10 an hour for smaller companies. I'm Kathleen Maloney, Fox News Radio.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen.
And I also want to give a big shout out over there to iHeartRadio. We're over there at iHeart as well. I just want to give them some love.
iHeart.
I know. Got to tell them, we love you, iHeart. Don't worry. We love you. I was told we never mention iHeartRadio enough. So
Except for every week.
Every week. But we love you, iHeartRadio. We love you so much.
We do.
If we could, we'd hug you.
We are honored to be featured.
We would hug you if we could, but you're a radio. So we really can't hug you. Okay.
I'm hugging the whole iHeart world right now.
Right
My
now.
arms are wrapped around the world.
Yep. Yeah, we're like that creepy uncle during Thanksgiving.
We are a little too touchy.
Just a little
bit. Too handsy.
All right, man. We got a great guest on tap tonight.
Boy, do we ever. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Brian Jones, Ron Pigpen McKernan of the Grateful Dead, Peter Ham of Badfinger. All of them iconic rock stars, all dead at 27 in the late 60s and early 70s. Could the death of all these stars at the same age be just a coincidence? Were their deaths thoroughly investigated or just chalked up to the rock and roll lifestyle? The continued unanswered questions surrounding the deaths of some of our most iconic rock legends led Chris Formant to first speculate and then reimagine what would happen if today's cutting-edge technology and techniques were applied to these famous cold cases, doing his own research in the archives of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame right here in Cleveland, my friends, studying advanced forensic techniques and gaining creative insights from top doctors, FBI investigators, and a former editor of Rolling Stone, and I know who that is. Formant has crafted a novel that may well become the Da Vinci Code for rock and roll fans. It's called Bright Midnight. Welcome to the program, Chris Formant.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris, great book. Good, man. Just how was your Christmas, by the way?
Oh, it was great.
Good.
Visited my family, and I'm calling in from Sedona, Arizona right now.
I love Sedona, Arizona. My parents used to have a condo there.
Really beautiful area. Beautiful area. Okay, well, I got to hit the ground running. I got to tell you, this book is great, and it's compelling as all hell. I mean, it just keeps you wanting to go and go and go and go. What crawled under your brain to make you want to write such a book?
Well, I collect rock and roll memorabilia, and one evening, this goes back about 3 years ago, I was just hammering up my latest edition, which was a 2-page pull-out article from a publication called The Record Mirror in 1964, and it was like a variety jazz standard in Europe. It was based in London, and it was introducing this hot new band called the Rolling Stones. If you can believe that. And what struck me most was not that it was the Stones, but was how young and fresh-faced, these kids were.
Yeah.
Keith Richards with no lines in his face, a pimply-faced Mick Jagger, and Brian Jones, who was the founder of the Rolling Stones. And he was their creative spark. He owned the rights to the name. I mean, you guys know all that.
Yeah.
And hanging right next to them, I had some Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison memorabilia. And kind of cosmically, I had some Doors music playing in the background. So that was, think of that setting. And, it struck me at that time. I knew they'd all died at 27. There's been an old, hippie myth about that for years. And a number of rock stars, these included, had died under very cloudy circumstances. There have been a lot of conspiratorial theories. But I thought, what would happen if they didn't die of excess or, overdoses or accidents? What if they were murdered? And I started this thought of that, this kernel of an idea, I couldn't shake for weeks and weeks. And I started doing some research into it and found, this stuff, it looks a little sketchy. And, one thing led to another, and that's how Bright Midnight got started. Bright Midnight's a fictional murder mystery. It's a CSI type murder mystery. It's a fiction, but it takes place today, in 2016, and it reimagines the deaths of a number of late iconic and 60s and 70s rock stars, not as accidents but as murders.
Yeah, what was so amazing to me is how, and first of all, let me say, it is so well written. Actually, to compare it to Da Vinci Code is an insult to you. I realize the Da Vinci Code is such a huge seller, and it's very famous, and everyone knows it, and it is compelling. Yeah. But let's face it, man, it's not that well written, and yours is really well written, and I am picky as hell. It is a great read. I really was so amazed and impressed by how I was sucked into it from page one, couldn't put it down till the end, and I was kept guessing, and it really was fantastic. What I wanted to ask you, though, is all of that forensic evidence that you put together, how much of that is really real?
A great deal of it is. Some of it is fiction, but and you guys know this, that these rock stars during that era, they were really enemies of the state.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of like, imagine like 15 or 20 years ago, some gangster rappers dying. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The police probably wouldn't do a whole lot of investigation. They may not even do autopsies. At this time period, back in the late 60s and 70s, they're really enemies of the state. Well, they were trying to set them up.
Yeah.
And so, only a few of them actually had real professional autopsies, and even those were very thin.
Well, and not to stop you, Chris, but wasn't John Lennon in a lot of ways viewed as an enemy in the state?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There actually is a book. There's a book written by his attorney that represented him in his deportation case. That came out about 3 or 4 months ago.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of these guys were being set up, harassed, you name it. And so when they died, the lack of investigation, is really frighteningly simplistic. And, now recognize it's 50 years ago, 50 years, more than 50 years ago with some of these guys. And so the sophistication of the technology and the forensic science was really primitive.
And the powers that be at that time, again, not to cut you, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the powers that be at that time were probably more prone to say good riddance rather than they were going, oh my God, we lost such a talent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, what struck me when I was doing the research is imagine today if 3 of the biggest rock stars in the world, they just happen to be, the age of these rock stars at 27 is just a coincidence, in the book. I don't play it up as much as you might think. But imagine today if 3 of the most famous rock stars in the world were all on the same concert bill and all were found dead within 30 days of that concert. All hell would break loose.
Oh, yeah, it would.
I didn't even until I started researching. I'd never even read anything that even suggested that. I didn't even know three of these guys died within 30 days of this concert where they were all headlining.
That part was amazing. The Berlin show. Yeah, I'd never even heard of it.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable when you start to look at it, and then you start to look at, I had some help interpreting some of the autopsies, and that's where the creative license came in.
Sure.
Where I would look at, okay, here's what it said. Now, what could else have caused that?
Well, Chris,
how they interpret it.
Do you personally think that there could be a shred of truth in your fiction that maybe these really were murders?
It's fiction. I mean, it's fiction, so I'm not.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of them that are pretty sketchy.
Okay.
There are a couple that are very sketchy, and particularly Brian Jones. And I know there's been a lot of speculation about him. Brian Jones seems very sketchy. I mean, here's a guy who owned the rights to the Rolling Stones. He owned the rights to it. It's his group. He owned the rights to the name. And he was on the sly. He was recording one of the clues in the book. I'm not going to give it away here, but one of the clues is something he was doing with another famous rock star, and it appeared as if they were moving toward trying to set up a new group. So he gets kicked out of the group that he founded, and within 30 days he's found face down in his pool, and he was a great swimmer, drowned. Jimi Hendrix, even the presiding doctor at the hospital, couldn't figure out what had happened because his head and hair and stomach was full of wine. He had red wine all over him, but he had no alcoholic content in his bloodstream. And he had been, I think he had been, he was combat experienced, and he thought this appeared as if it was waterboarding. The ambulance shows up at Hendrix's place, no one's there. They got a call, someone said, hey, this guy's unconscious or is a problem. They get there, the door's ajar, they go, and no one in sight. So some of it's very, very sketchy as you go through, and viewed from the perspective of modern, investigative, techniques and forensic science and just common sense, you'd say, wait a second, this doesn't even add up. I mean, just crazy. And you tack on that many of them had very, very large insurance policies on them. It just creates kind of a target-rich environment.
I am surprised that nobody has opened up these cases, like in the book, has opened up these cases in the real world to look at them again with our modern technology to see if they were actually murdered or what was going on with these rockers.
Yeah, I think there've been a couple attempts, but it's a long time ago. So these are, unless there's some motivation, a lot of there are not many people around that were even, and I found this out as I was trying to go through it. There just aren't many people around who, knew them, that were there at the time of their deaths. If you hear the way family members or some of the band members, talk about it, the family members always, in almost all of these families, believe that there was something suspicious going on.
Well, for instance, when Prince died, and I actually knew Prince because I'm from here in Minnesota, and I interviewed him several times on radio, and I got to know him as a person. But when he died, that came as a shock to me personally because I never saw it coming. And as far as I knew, he was in good health. Obviously, they don't put all their cards on the table and tell you their health and what's going on. But like a lot of folks, of course, right away after, for instance, Prince passed away, a lot of people said murder right away. They thought he was murdered, which who knows? No, I mean, they say it was overdose of fentanyl. There are some weird circumstances that I've heard from some of his relatives that were not necessarily divulged in the media. That there's some weird things going on, and David Bowie, same thing. He allegedly died of cancer, but there has been no definitive word on what he truly died of.
Well, you guys, we don't want to give away anything of the book, but you see how, I created a whole fiction around, around the deaths.
Yep.
Just with the simple premise, what if they were murdered?
Mm-hmm.
And then what if it was something pretty sinister that was going on here? If you think back, and there's, at that time period, there were a handful of people really controlling the whole industry globally.
Yep. Boy, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so, it wasn't like today. And so, it was, it was almost mafia-like,
mm-hmm.
If you will. And, these stars were kind of pawns in there. None of them made much money. Only a few made, a few of the groups that survived and kept the music rights, made a ton of money. But the rest of them didn't make a whole lot.
Well, it was the writers, because they had more control. And it was a better system. It's the songwriters who made the money. You're absolutely right as far as the recordings and even back then, even the live shows, they weren't making all that much. And as far as being almost mafia-like, let's face it, if you've done any kind of research, which obviously you've done a ton into the history of pop music, it wasn't only in all cases mafia-like. In some cases, it was literally mafia involved with running some of these labels, especially, we won't necessarily say it, but I mean, there was organized crime involved. There's no question about it. And that's one of the things that's so impressive about your book is it's not that big a leap from your very well-written, convincing, airtight. I mean, you create a world
mm-hmm.
and it feels real. Not that big a leap from that world to the real world. It's not that big a stretch. I'm wondering, in your mind, having done all the research you did, and of course, having this in your imagination all of that time, and when you're writing a book of fiction, especially a book of fiction that's based on a lot of real world
mm-hmm.
people and events, it's easy to get really, really caught up in it. I mean, of course, you have to get caught up in it to really make it be convincing and real. Are any of those events, any of those deaths, in your mind, really, truly real world, suspicious to the point where you think it's a true possibility that they could have been murdered?
Yeah, I do. I do. I didn't start out doing that. I just started out with the premise, that, these were all, they died of overdoses or accidents, and I had to sift through a lot of sort of the hippie myth kinds of stuff, and a lot of the conspiratorial, discussions. But there's been a lot written about them, but nothing that really said, okay, let's look at this a little bit more scientifically. And you'll notice in the book there are actually two technologies in there that I'm a technologist by trade, but when I couldn't make everything perfectly sync, I invented two technologies, and they sound like they're in existence today, but they're not.
Did you create the 3D hologram world? That was amazing.
There's nothing that's there, and that digital fabric analysis does not exist today.
Very cool.
Highly believable.
That's my homage to Tom Clancy.
Highly believable. Really great. I was so impressed. My next question, though, is, as a writer, I'm sorry I'm getting so wrapped up in all this, is how did you do such a great job of just the actual nuts and bolts writing? This is a debut novel. You write like a pro.
Well, we did a ton of editing. The original manuscript was 450 pages, and the book went out at 300. So I took a lot out. And so I had very good editors that helped me change the beginning probably a dozen times, change the ending probably 36 times, made good guys, bad guys, good guys. Publisher wanted a love interest. We put, all of that sort of stuff. But the main story and the vignettes and how it develops, and all of it really tightened it so it would move quicker. I love the original manuscript, and if you're a music geek, you would eat it up, But probably all 10 people in the country that would enjoy that, would really kick out of it, but no one else would. they'd be bored to death.
We could have had a party.
Yeah. Well, the book is a real page turner, very, very interesting, and of course you had very fertile ground to work with because there's such myths and lore about these deaths that cloud to this and cloud to that. So you had a lot of good stuff to work with, but then you added your own flair.
It also was kind of a challenge, I'd add, that because they're so well known and they've been talked about, it's hard to come up with new information. But I did want to do one thing. So there is some new information, and there are a lot of little vignettes, and many of those clues in there are real, and many of the vignettes, was sort of my high fidelity, moment where I got a little kind of music geeky and introduced some things in some groups that are not well known, but they were just little flashes or little things that occurred back in that time period that if you really weren't into the music of the time period, it'd go right over your head. So I thought that was my homage to high fidelity.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of the high fidelity connection because yours is such a compelling murder mystery. But yeah, in terms of the tone and the atmosphere, there's a lot of high fidelity. And I loved all the music references because I'm a music geek, which brings up my next thing. Question is, or statement, congratulations for being the first fiction author to have your book premiere at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They must have really thought an awful lot of it.
Yeah, they liked it. They liked it a lot, obviously, because it was a mix of, some pretty creative fiction. Yeah. And then it didn't, when you ask people today about some of these rock stars, they'll talk about the music, but, they're characterized as sort of drug-addled hippies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
what I tried to do in the book is really bring out the point that these were real. This was a renaissance in music, and I do honestly believe that in 50 or 100 years, it'll be looked back as another renaissance of art and music and writing, the way we look back on the Renaissance. And I think that these were, the cover of a book has a little minstrel over there. These were kind of the minstrels of the, very creative. They were creating music like nothing you had ever heard before, and they were brilliant musicians and poets and composers. And I wanted to bring that out. I wanted to bring their personalities, but I wanted to bring that out. A lot of the people that like the book the most are millennials.
Sure.
They love music, but it brings out, each of those little vignettes brings out the personalities of what those people were like. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jim Morrison he had a 165 IQ. He was a genius, poet. Jimi Hendrix, you think of him as just some,
druggy guitarist,
pot smoking drug, he was a perfectionist. He didn't want any kind of alcohol. He didn't want alcohol or drugs in the recording studio. He built the state-of-the-art, Electric Lady Studios at the time, the most technically advanced recording studio in the world at that time. So these guys were, some of them were pretty good businessmen. Yeah. They were exceptional writers, and a lot of them just good guys, or women.
Yeah, and then, of course, the whole 27 thing. Again, like you said, you don't play it up in the book, but it is awfully odd, the number of rockers and musicians have died at that age of 27.
Yeah, and every time another one, another rock star dies at 27, it summons this stuff all again. I mean, some of the ones who have died recently, Kurt Cobain, it's very sketchy.
Yeah, very odd. In fact, I watched a documentary called Soaked in Bleach about his death and how strange things were, right down to the placement of the shotgun.
That's what I had heard too. Just that it was lying right beside, not like, if you blew your head off, the shotgun's not going to lie perfectly.
Yeah, and how the shell was found on the opposite side of the ejection action of the shotgun. So I mean, definitely, just release.
Sound staged.
Exactly, it does sound staged, and a lot of these people, again, like Eric said, it's not that far of a leap to think were they murdered, and you do a masterful job of intertwining the factual evidence along with the fiction. I mean, it's hard at times; it gets blurry, and that's what you want in a good fiction tale. You want that blur,
and hopefully it creates a little controversy. Depending on the age and how into music someone is. If you're a boomer, you start putting on. We actually created a Spotify soundtrack. Or the Rock Hall did. Of all the songs and musicians that were referenced in the book.
Yeah.
But if you're a boomer, you put on some period music, some psychedelic music, or whatever your favorite groups are, and sort of reminisce. Mystery writers like the idea that it's, and thriller readers, mystery readers like the idea, because no one's ever written a murder mystery about that genre.
No one has. We got to run a break though. We come back. We're gonna talk a lot more about this awesome book. Again, it's Bright Midnight. You want to check that book out. It's definitely worth the time to get it and read it, because you're never gonna put it down, and you're never gonna think about rock and roll the same after that book. Don't go anywhere. Be right back with Chris Formant. When we come back, don't go nowhere.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Anavar Media LCC is a dedicated team of professionals committed to helping business development scale and protect their websites, mobile applications, enterprise software solutions in the Northeast Ohio area. Locally owned since 2012, our client-centered values truly sets Anavar apart. Contact us today to learn how you can get 25% off your first project. Call them at 234-380-4852. Again, that's 234-380-4852, or visit them at www.anavar.com. Again, that's www.anavar.com.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location?
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey? Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Do you have a question for our guest tonight? Don't feel like calling the show? Not a problem. Email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Again, that's afterhoursam@gmail.com.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen.
Wow,
a.k.a. Gantry Elliott.
Exactly. Well, this first half hour went by so fast. I got to ask you, Chris, with the characters in your book, they're fictional characters, how did you come up with these such rich characters?
Well, like many authors, you try to tie your characters typically to people or personalities or combinations of personalities, so you can reflect back on something more tangible to you. So when I was in Gantry Elliott, did you guys ever see Crazy Heart? Remember the movie?
Yes, yes, with Jeff Bridges. Yep.
So Gantry Elliott is Jeff Bridges, but not, because again, I imagine him looking kind of like a little bit of a Southern accent, kind of a little miskept.
Sure.
And so
disheveled.
That little disheveled, cowboy boots, and then his personality was more. I don't know if you remember Jerry Hopkins. He wrote the book, sort of the quintessential book on the Doors. No One Gets Out of Here Alive.
Yes, yeah.
But he was one of the original writers in Rolling Stone, and he also worked for Mike Wallace as an investigative reporter. And so I tried to sort of channel a Jerry Hopkins type of figure through a Jeff Bridges body. And if we ever make a movie of this, I think Jeff Bridges would be.
I was going to say, Jeff, if you're listening to this show, get a hold of us, and we'll put you in touch with Chris, and maybe you could be, I don't know, part of the movie. I think.
And we were talking at the break how very cinematic the movie is. Absolutely, I could absolutely see it. It would be so fun to see all those rock star characters being portrayed. The only person who I recognized in the book as a real world person who you fictionalized was the publisher of Rolling Stone. I'm wondering how you came up with that. And he ultimately is a good guy in the book, and there's an awful lot of real world people who may not come to that conclusion. Is that your conclusion about Jan Wenner?
Yeah, I think Jan is a it doesn't quite it wasn't
1-to-1.
It isn't quite a Jan Wenner, but it's a Jan Wenner-esque like person, and I think that anybody that's in, he created a new medium. Rock music. No one had ever done anything like that before, and so he created that. And I think that when you do that, you have to make a lot of choices. And he's and I think that whether he's the more successful or senior you are in an organization or more in the limelight, you're going to have people that are going to agree with what you do and love you, and people that are detractors.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's always going to be.
So you get that. So he's just, he's a magnet for that, and and people feel about rock music. There's much more of an emotional connection than if it's something else out there. And I think that he just draws a lot of attention because of that, and so he becomes a controversial figure just by virtue of the kind of business that he's had.
Well, he's got.
And I imagine him personally, you being on the board of directors. Now, how did that happen?
It actually was related to the book. When I've been on the board about a little over 3 years, and when I had got the itch to write this, the first thing that what's the Library of Congress of Rock, and that's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I wanted to go up there, and everyone had encouraged me to go up there, and I met someone that was on the board just by coincidence through some business activities, and asked him if he could help me get at some of the archives so I could really get at some information that may not be the kind that you would read normally in any biographies or on the web. And so he was kind enough to introduce me to some of the archivists there who got me access to some of the original handwritten accounts from the investigative reporters and editors of Rolling Stone at the time. So I had 9 boxes full of files of stuff and cassette recordings and things that, brought this to life like nothing else could have. So that was just an incredibly rich, cachet of information that, it sort of summoned back up all the emotion and what people were thinking and how shocked and how, superficial a lot of it was.
Was there anything? Sorry about that. Was there anything in those files that you found that were kind of, not really given to the general public that absolutely shocked and floored you about any of these rockers?
No, nothing that shocked me. I mean, I didn't have any perspective on them till I started doing the research. I'd read, a lot of the same kind of books that you guys have read and, heard all the stories, but nothing like just the detailed accounts, imagine you're an investigative reporter and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And the thing that shocked me the most was just, was almost the opposite, was the lack of facts. And, some of these, like Jim Morrison, I mean, before anybody could even, get there, I mean, he's put in a casket and buried, and then, just the superficiality of some of the stuff.
I mean,
was a great swimmer and he's found drowned, and he had just been kicked out of the group that he founded. I mean, the circumstantial evidence as you go through just was overpowering. And, some of that was summoned up, but not a lot of it was known at that time because, these were reporters going out to go cover the deaths of, and a lot of the coincidences and commonalities, didn't start to get put together till way after this. But I was sort of going in looking for the kinds of stuff that helped inform, the hypotheses that I was starting to grab.
Do you think that when a lot of these rock stars died, like for instance, Brian Jones, 1969, he died July 3rd to be exact, age 27, of course. But do you think that the Vietnam War rage at that time overshadowed that news story for a lot of the reporters, and that's why it wasn't given any real hard looks?
Well, there was a lot going on. There was, it was just, it was just continual protests around the globe. So I think that, and there was, depending on what country you were in and where the news was coming from, there was a real battle going on at the time between, the media and the governments to control some of the information that came out. And, the U.S. was relatively open, but, think of England. I mean, it was the BBC and, what? I mean, it was really government controlled.
Yeah.
At the time. So really, the insight, it wasn't as, there was no CNN.
Yeah.
So you didn't have people able to crack it open. And, with open and shut cases, I mean, what are people, where are people going to get the information?
Yeah. Well,
there really wasn't. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that it was, it's hard to imagine in this day and age because everything becomes so transparent.
Yeah.
But there was virtually no transparency here.
Yeah, because people look at that time and day, that time in our history, and someone like me, I was born in the 70s, and I didn't live through all that stuff, and I graduated high school in the 90s, and so having such a closed-off media is done, it would be so foreign to me, where everything is so open now comparatively to back then. You look at the 60s, you go, oh, that was such a weird time. Those people wearing the weird clothes and smoking their dope. That's how a lot of people view the 60s. But the 60s, my mother, she lived through it, and she'll tell you she was one of the protesters. In fact, she was arrested once during a sit-in. But you didn't hear that from me. But anyhow, but she was telling me how violent it was and how, even today's what we have going on is nowhere near the magnitude of what was happening then. And that's something I think that gets lost in a lot of people. is how violent it was.
You had racial wars, like not like the kind of issues that we have today. You had real true racial wars. You had young against old. I mean, there really was a significant cultural rift, between young people, and it was very revolutionary, between young people and today. But I do think, when we had our debut at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, earlier in the month, people were asking questions about the music and the era. And there's a line in the book, and so and maybe you remember it, where Gantry is sort of reminiscing. He's helping the FBI look at commonalities. He's looking at engineers and musicians and session musicians, and he starts getting a little teary-eyed, because he was, the exact line is, he was recalling when music was an art form, not a science project. Yeah. And my son is a budding recording artist, and he shared with me a couple of years ago what I think is called auto-tune or autotone. Yeah. What you can do now, if people like us, get in a mic in a recording studio, they can make us sound good.
People use that in talk radio, in fact, so they get the nice deep voice, the nice rich talk radio voice. Yeah. Yes.
So you're in an environment where you can synthetically produce music, where at this time, I mean, not only the melodies, but how they were the technology was just primitive. I mean, how they were, I'm sure you've read about how Sgt. Pepper's album was created and the things that they used to do that. But all that stuff, this beautiful music, that was real breakthrough at the time, was really just based on musical ability, not because they could, synthetically create something.
I think Elvin Bishop, we interviewed Elvin Bishop on the show, and I think he said it best when I brought up today's way of music. And he just said, well, I have talent. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, remember that, Eric? I have talent. Where the meaning that the artists of today don't have to even rely on talent anymore. That it's so, like you're saying, it's so, there it is. It's so homogenized. It's so scientific that they can make anybody sound great, no matter who it is. And I was having this same discussion with a younger guy I knew. We were talking about rock and roll, and I said, well, I remember when rock and roll is AC/DC and stuff like that, and of course he's talking about today's music, and I said, no, you don't seem to understand. Back then they actually had to play their instruments. They just didn't go on stage and have a beat behind them and start singing.
Yeah, and I think the acid test for me, I mean, you can synthetically produce so much, but the Beats machines, that just, provide the rhythm and the drum rolls and everything. I mean, they really can't reproduce what a real drummer can do. Mm-hmm. And when you actually see, I was lucky enough to go to Desert Trip, to go to Old Cella, and to see some of these guys play now, and how accomplished they are, was just, it was just an unbelievable treat, and how they've perfected their art over time. But it really was, it's an art form, not a science project.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I do believe I was talking to Neil Peart. I do believe that's his name, from Rush, the drummer from Rush, some years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
And he had echoed the same thing, that you can never duplicate or synthesize in a little booth heart and talent and drive and passion. Mm-hmm. Those are just things that are just the X factor in music.
Well, I tried to bring some of that to life in some of the vignettes, to bring the personalities of some of the people, even in the opening scenes, sort of juxtaposing the millennials' view of the music of that era with what the reality was. That a lot of that the music at that time served as the underpinnings for all the music that they were sort of the roots of the tree of music that we listen to, that we see today.
Now, you guys are both rock and roll historians, both you and Eric, and I got to ask you, is this pre-3-chord, power chord music? I mean, was it more, I dabble with the guitar. I'm far from accomplished guitarist, but like when I do play an AC/DC tune, it's primarily just the power chords. Was that music different than something I grew up with? Was it more sophisticated in the way that they played and the way that they had to play?
Well, these artists were.
Okay.
The power chords have been there for all the way back.
Sure.
They're derived from blues. It's 3-chord blues basically, and you've amplified it and put it on an electric guitar and fuzzed it out. I mean, that's what power chords are. They've always been there, but in terms of relying on them. The artists that are featured in the book, which are basically,
the legends,
the ones who are killed, the ones who die, they're all very music. A lot of people kind of, just because it was so long ago, unless you are of a certain, probably 50 or older, you don't realize how important to the Stones, Rolling Stones, that Brian Jones was. Yeah. And I'd forgotten until I read the book that he actually owned the name. I hadn't even remembered that. I knew it way back.
That weaving guitar sound that they use, he created that. And even in the one, the one sort of clue in there where he's playing the sitar with the guitarist, they're using that same technique. But he created that sound that's stayed with them for 50 years.
Wow.
And he was just a brilliant multi-instrumentalist and extremely creative, kind of a jerk, unfortunately, but he was an amazing guitarist and instrumentalist, and he had a vision, and so it's easy to forget these days how important he was to the band. And you add to that the Doors. I mean, the Doors sound to me at their best as fresh today as they did at the time. I loved the Doors growing up. My best friend and I, who lived a couple blocks away, I mean, we listened to the Doors all the time when we were kids. I'm talking 10 years old. We were listening to the Doors. I loved them. Amazing to me.
What's fun to kind of speculate, and we were doing this at the Rock Hall a month ago, is what would have happened if these guys would have lived. If they lived today, I'll ask you guys. I mean, because we were playing a little game with the audience at the time. It was kind of fun. I mean, what do you think? What would Hendrix be doing now?
I think
Jim Morrison or Peter Ham or any of these guys, Pigpen, McKernan.
Well, probably playing casinos. No, I'm kidding, of course. But no, I think that their musical influence would have just kept growing, and maybe we wouldn't have the music that in my opinion, that has gone downhill. That's just my opinion, of course. That has gone downhill. I don't think that we would have so much of that. I think that the musical influence would have been greater. Because quite honestly, they died entirely too young. The influence that they could have had, all the potential was taken with them. In a lot of ways, for my generation, I'm a Gen Xer. Those influences were really never anything to us. We were more Nirvana, those kind of influences for my generation.
But if you ask
me,
Kurt Cobain or whoever at that time who their influences were, then they would they'd suggest it was probably some of these groups.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, of
course
it was.
And my big influence musically was I've always been an AC/DC fan because I've always been a fan of the bluesy sound. Aerosmith, of course.
Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin. I think John Bonham was probably about the best drummist to ever walk the face of the earth, in my opinion. But unfortunately, he's another one that died under weird circumstances.
Yep. When I think about it, and it's kind of fun to, we sort of play this game, of what we think they'd be doing if they were alive, and I'll give you my speculation if you want to hear it.
I'd love to hear it.
I want to give mine too, but you give yours first.
Okay, I'll start. Jimi Hendrix. At the time he was getting very jazzy. He started to play, and I think he was starting to sort of move away. He's exploring more world music and more jazz, and he was moving away from just outright rock. And I think that he had the potential to. I think he would have moved into a little bit more jazz, and maybe even created sort of a new jazz rock hybrid. I always think that he would have created sort of a new genre there. Jim Morrison, I think, would have stopped, recording. He'd probably be writing poetry.
Yeah.
Not doing that. Peter Ham, who wrote some beautiful songs, and his, some of his most famous songs, have yet to be covered, but Without You became, a huge hit for Mariah Carey and Nielsen. Yeah. This huge hit, but he, that was after him, after he died. I think he seems to me like he would have been sort of a Newman kind of guy who moved from rock to doing screen, scoring. And I think Al Wilson from Canned Heat, he was a brilliant jazz musician and harmonica player. I always picture him playing in dive bars. He's gone down. He's still hanging around playing little dive bars. 6 or 7 people in the bar listening to him.
Because he was gonna stay true to his roots. Here's what I think, and my answer will sound a little glib, but nonetheless, I think all these people in that era, part of what made them as great as they were was a wild streak, was something that they couldn't control. So I do think there was an element of self-destructiveness that was built into their greatness. So I'm not sure you would have been able to get around it. Completely apart from whether or not there was any foul play, which I find extremely intriguing and I am open to. But apart from that notion, I think if it hadn't been the day that they were done in by whatever they were done in by, it would have happened at another time, probably not a whole lot later, if you see what I mean. They were probably doomed to misadventure by something that was inside of them, plus the era, plus just what was happening and how they were expressing themselves. So I think perhaps with most, if not all, of these people, it was kind of built in to their greatness an element of burning out. Hope I die before I go.
So do you guys think that there's an element of self-destruction then that comes with the genius?
You can, sure, yes, absolutely.
Because that's what kind of sounds like you're saying is they would have found a way to do themselves in one way or another. It almost sounds like
that
self-destruction.
is exactly what I'm saying.
Well, a lot of the Renaissance giants, died young too.
Yeah.
I mean, they burned out, or they had some drug problems, or some sort of excess problem, something that something was fueling them.
Yeah, well, exactly.
How young Mozart was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Russ never sleeps, man.
That's right. Well, Chris, we only got 3 minutes left of the show. Boy, did this go by fast this hour. Why don't you tell people where they can get your book and how they can contact you, all that kind of good stuff. Plug away, my friend. Plug away.
Yeah, you can buy Bright Midnight on at any bookstore, Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. I mean, any of the online services. You could go to my website, ChrisFormant.com, and always and order it through that as well. But the book has been getting good and growing reviews. We're actually taking our show out to California. To some of the bookstores in San Francisco and in LA in February to try to turn people on to the book out there as well. So it's starting to grow in popularity. A lot of the stations such as yours, the TV and radio stations, and some of the the stations and the shows that have large followings that love rock and roll, love mysteries, love thrillers. Bright Midnight's got it all, for them. So I think that this is it's a great book, fast read, And I think anybody that loves thrillers and loves rock and roll is going to love this book.
I would definitely agree. Well, we got to get out of here, Eric. It's already that time. Well, on behalf of myself, Joel Sturgis, and Mr. Eric Olsen, we'd like to thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM. I'd like to thank Chris for coming on, talking rock and roll with us. And make sure you pick up your copy of Bright Midnight at better bookstores everywhere. Until next time, take care of each other, love each other. Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM. And please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.